a cash transport company leaves a bank with an armored truck full of money. Suddenly, a cement mixer truck blocks their path, and a masked man gets out and points a gun at them. Behind them, a crane lifts the vehicle so they cannot escape, and several robbers begin to break down the armored door, throwing several stun grenades to subdue the workers. At that moment, one of the robbers notices a boy watching them from a car, and they quickly order him to get out. Frightened, the young man calls his father and gets out of the car, obeying the criminals. The robbers are moving the bags of money when one of the security guards reveals himself and pulls off one of the robbers' masks. Furious, the man shoots him, and to hide his identity, he kills the other guard and the young man in the truck. His father, Patrick, had just arrived to help him, but he only sees his son being killed and then is shot himself. Before losing consciousness, Patrick sees the killer's distinctive face with a scar over his eye and commits it to memory. The man fights for his life in the clinic, but after 3 weeks of intensive care, he manages to recover. Immediately, Patrick goes to the cash in transit company and talks to Terry, the manager, about everything that happened that day. Patrick asks to work with them, and Terry, to help him, decides to give him a chance, so he assigns a man named Bullet to train him. The man trains for several days and learns everything he needs to know, passing the company's tests with the minimum score required to be accepted. They give Patrick the nickname H and introduce him to his new colleagues, including Dave and Bob. The company soon entrusts him with his first job, and H accompanies Dave and Bullet on their first transport, where everything goes perfectly. The next day, H has his second assignment and sets out with Bob to transport money, but suddenly they are ambushed by several robbers in trucks, who have taken their colleague Bullet hostage, forcing them to open the armored truck if they want their friend to stay alive. They have no choice but to obey, and one of the assailants orders H to load all the bags of money into the back of a van. H does so, but deliberately throws one out of the back, causing the robbers to get out to look for it. At that moment, H throws another bag and immediately shoots the criminal in the head. With exceptional aim, the man continues to shoot all the robbers and quickly goes after the leader who was trying to escape. The robber had hidden in one of the warehouses, and when H finds him, he shoots him to subdue him and tries to get some information out of him, but when he fails, he blows his head off. At the company, H's actions are frowned upon by manager Terry, who thinks he put everyone's lives at risk and proposes giving him an office job for several months, but the company's CEO, Blake Halls, shows up and congratulates H on his bravery, suggesting that he be given a promotion. Later, the company calls him to show him the video of the first robbery, where his son was killed, and asks him if he thinks the latest robbery was carried out by the same robbers. H notices the man with the scar and tells his superiors that there seems to be no connection between the two robberies. It is here that we learn that the agents interviewing him work for a man named King, who thinks that H is in the company to get revenge and will sooner or later lead them to the robbers who killed his son. When they finish, other workers congratulate H for his bravery and for saving the lives of his colleagues by killing the robbers, to which H thanks them and quickly gets to work. 3 months pass without incident, until one day, while Bullet and H are transporting money, they are surprised by dozens of robbers, who use a chemical device to knock out the armored car guards. Bullet is quickly taken to the ground, but when H gets out and shows them his face, the criminals seem to recognize him and quickly leave. Back at the office, Terry can't understand how several armed men decided to leave and abandon the money just because they saw his face, but Blake tells Terry to stop overthinking it, and after congratulating H, he tells him that he will now have his own team so he can continue doing what he does. That night, H breaks into the house of a coworker, Dana, whom he had certain suspicions about, and upon finding a large pile of money, he begins to interrogate her, shooting at the sofa to intimidate her. Dana reveals that she only stole a little money from one of the transports she made, but denies being involved in any criminal gang. H then shows her a photo of Dana's parents, saying that if she lied to him, he won't hesitate to kill them. In the next scene, the film takes us back 5 months, to the day the first robbery took place. H is with his son, Dougie, who has come on vacation to visit his father. At that moment, the man receives a call from Mike, a crime boss H used to work for. It turns out that H used to be a criminal, and his boss Mike called him to do one last job, but tells him that he will not be directly involved and there is no risk involved. Following Mike's instructions, H and his son closely follow the armored truck to observe the robbery and give Mike information about his men's performance. However, when H gets out of the car, the robbers see Dougie and throw him to the ground, then kill him as H runs towards them, whom they also shoot thinking he is a civilian. This is where he ends up in intensive care for 3 weeks, and when he wakes up, he learns that his son has died. H meets with his ex-wife, who blames him directly for Dougie's death. Later, the man also meets with Mike and his associates, holding them responsible for what happened to Dougie, and they say they are sorry, promising to help him find his son's killer. To ensure their anonymity, the criminal organization did not know exactly who they had hired for the robbery, so they interrogate all the criminals and groups that could have been involved. After several failed attempts, they finally find a criminal who has information, and after torturing him, the man tells them about 2 criminal brothers who were in the robbery. H immediately goes to the brothers' apartment and tries to get information out of them, but since they don't tell him anything, the man kills them. Since he started working at the security company, H has been suspicious of some of the guards, so he asks his assistant Kirsty to investigate them and also to get him his son's autopsy file. In the next scene, we see the thieves responsible for the first robbery, made up of Afghan war veterans, led by an intelligent man named Jackson. The group was planning the first heist, and among them we can see Jan, the man with the scar over his eye. After stealing the money and killing Dougie, the gang begins to plan their next heist, which is none other than robbing the cash in transit company itself, where they estimate there is about $150 million. It is here that we learn that Bullet is a mole, and that he is the one who has given them all the information for the previous heists. At that moment, we see Bullet and H in an armored car, where Bullet reveals that he is a mole. The man does not want H to be killed, so he asks him to obey and not resist the robbery. After deactivating the cameras, Bullet drives to an abandoned building, where the criminal gang is waiting for them, dressed in bulletproof vests and armed with an arsenal. H decides to obey, and the gang handcuffs him and takes him hostage. Then they all get into the armored truck, managing to hide inside and thus enter the security company. Once inside, the criminals raid the place and manage to subdue most of the guards, and everything seems to be going according to plan. However, one of the guards sees the situation and presses the panic button, setting off the alarms and turning what looked like it was going to be an uneventful robbery into a bloodbath. The company's guards rush to help and shoot at the thieves, but the gang executes each of the rebels. When they manage to deactivate the alarm, they open the door to the complex, and a thief waiting outside enters with a van to begin loading the money. At the same time, the police SWAT team arrives at the scene and manages to block the entrance and secure the perimeter. Inside, H manages to disarm one of them and shoots him in the foot, then quickly grabs him by the neck to choke him. H frees Terry and a guard, then puts on the suit of the robber he killed to go unnoticed. The man walks up to one of the thieves who is loading the money into another armored truck and orders him to take off his mask, but when he sees that he is not his son's killer, he shoots him. 2 of the guards fight back and manage to corner several robbers, but then the traitor Bullet decides to act, asking Dana for her gun, with which he executes the girl and her partner in cold blood. Meanwhile, Terry and Dave are thinking about how to act when the robber sees them and shoots them. Fortunately, H arrives just in time to save them, and the 2 begin an intense fight that leaves H badly injured, but he manages to emerge victorious. The other robbers head for the armored truck to make their escape, when H sees them and starts shooting at them. Unfortunately, Bullet appears and fires a burst at H, hitting him in the chest, but the bulletproof vest does its job and saves his life, so H pretends to be dead so they won't finish him off on the ground. Bullet quickly climbs into the armored truck and flees with the other robbers, and at that moment, his son's killer, Jan, locks eyes with H on the ground and discovers that he is not dead. However, it was too late to finish him off, and the gang escapes through the garage door, crashing into the police cars blocking the road. They are pursued by the entire police force and the city's special agents, but they manage to reach a building where they close the doors and isolate themselves from the police. There, they had built an underground passageway that leads to some abandoned train tracks. One of the robbers is seriously injured and cannot continue, so Jan kills him, and together with Bullet, they escape with the money to the train tracks. When they arrive, 2 ATVs are waiting for them, and after loading the bags, they drive several miles to the exit, where they had left a car to escape. Once they are alone, Jan sees an opportunity to keep all the money for himself, so he betrays Bullet and kills him, escaping with the bags in the car. Several weeks later, Jan is living in a luxurious apartment, with all the money at his disposal. Suddenly, the man receives a call, and when he turns around, he sees H behind him, who has come seeking revenge. H throws him the autopsy report of his son Dougie, which Jan begins to read, mentioning the shots Dougie received in the liver, lungs, and finally in the heart. Seeing the photo of the boy, Jan remembers that he killed him, and also remembers H looking at him on the ground. Without giving him time to react, H shoots Jan in the liver, causing him to scream in pain. He immediately shoots him in the lungs and finishes him off with one last shot straight to the heart. The man calmly leaves the apartment, without touching a single penny of the stolen money, and having fulfilled his mission of revenge, he escapes in a car with the help of a partner. Subscribe and turn on notifications to see more videos like this. Leave a like to help the channel out, and thank you for watching.